Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and other guests. I'm so happy to be here again after missing the last meeting, but for a good reason. Our family went on a much needed trip to Door County. It was the first time for us to go to Door County road trip. We drove all the way there having fun, and the best thing was there's no Wi-Fi, no internet, and no cellular because we stayed on an island. Now, given that an island life is much relaxed and slower paced, like everything closed by 6 o'clock, we were presented by the myriad of opportunities. We were able to see the beach. We were able to look at the farm and really just walk around and talk and just kind of discover laughter and discover each other. I even learned how to skip rock for the first time. And I'm 43 years old. So that was great. And the important thing is my family were impressed. Now, one of the things that was a highlight of our trip was a boat tour. And the boat tour took us along the coastal of Door County and the peninsula. And one of the topics that the tour guide was doing was the Millionaire Row. And this full block of really custom-made homes, and their ages, they're very classic, they're built in probably like 100 years old, but they're well preserved, and the value's just really high. That's why it's called Millionaire Row. And of course, as they build over there too, they have certain types of style, model. Basically, a lot of things are made to preserve the ambience. But one thing stick to my mind when he said this. A lot of these houses and land are passed from generation to generation. From a father who moved into this area, who started a business, passed it on to their children, and now to their grandchildren. It is a generational wealth. And as I see myself being assigned to speak about something this week, that just clicked into my mind. Number one is because I'm a real estate investor and also an entrepreneur. So I actually learned generational wealth, or the concept of it, a few years ago. But it just sticks to my mind in reality how I see all these houses, all these lands, and everything that exists right now that got passed down from generation to generation. So that's my topic for today, building generational wealth. Now, in order to learn generational wealth, it's very important to learn the difference between asset and liability. We often confuse what the two are. Do I have an asset or do I have a liability? What makes this thing an asset? What makes this thing a liability? Now, a book that really helped me to learn about wealth, financial literature, and assets and liability is this book right here, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I happened to read this book about 5 years ago when I started in my journey of real estate. However, it's not only good for people who want to start in real estate. This book will actually teach you about financial literature, right? About what is an asset and what is liability. So, throughout this speech, my hope is that if you haven't read this book yet, it will be something that you will pick up, and one of the things that you would read on the way home or on an audible or just reading before you sleep. So, in this book, Kiyosaki defines an asset as anything that puts money in your pocket. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Which brings to my number one point. Point number one. Building generational wealth starts with knowing your liability. Let's break it down, right? What is liability? Again, liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. I'm going to give an example. This iPad is a liability. I purchased this for $300 on sale. And so, but every day the value goes down. Now, if I were to drop this, oops, that's $200 for the screen. Now this laptop or this iPad is costing me $500. And guess what? When I have to sell this, or if I want to sell this in 3, 4, 5 years, I probably, if I'm lucky, I probably could have gotten like maybe $50. So that is a liability. I'm going to give you another example. My car is a liability. It is known that if you bought a new car and you drive it out of the car lot, by the time you drive it out of the car lot, the car value would have decreased. Maybe it's 10%, maybe 15%, depending on the car model. But the value decreased. Right? A car is purchased for $20,000. It's probably going to be $15,000 by next year, $10,000 by the third year. You get the point. And I even consider my house a liability. Why? Because I have a mortgage. Well, if I have a mortgage, I have to make payments every month. Or the bank will take it away. Where do I live? I have to pay maintenance over time, and I have to pay insurance. So if all these things that we own are liabilities, then how do we build generational wealth? That brings me to number 2. Point number 2. Building generational wealth starts with knowing how to reduce and pay for your liability. And the answer, my friend, is to have assets. And to have assets that would put money in your pocket. I'll give you another example. There's a lot of things we can do to turn liability into an asset. For example, on my recent trip to Florida, I stayed in an Airbnb room. Well, guess what? I asked the owner of the house, how much do you make money off this room? And they would just laugh. It's enough to pay for the mortgage. Well, guess what? They just turned their liability into an asset. I also rented a car on Turo. Well, guess what? The time that the car you don't drive the car, that car turns into liability. But now that you can make money on the car, it turns into an asset, right? So, in conclusion, there's a lot of things we can do to turn liability into assets. And what I said just scratched the surface. I really encourage you to read the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, so that you guys can know more about the difference between assets and liabilities. Thank you and have a great day.